Eastern Standard Time. It's Hour of Empower, LinkedIn Live. Today's big word is recovery. So put your thinking caps on and start focusing on what recovery might mean to you. And we'd love to hear your definition. I'm so honored to have Gretchen Skalka back. She is just an amazing trailblazer out there for LinkedIn Live, and all of her consulting. So I would definitely get to know Gretchen. It might be one of the best things you do today. Chat's open. We depend on you to direct our thoughts and conversation. We want to give as many takeaways as possible today. And we'd rather talk about what you want to talk about than what we think you might want to hear. So with that, I'll just say hello really quickly. Cindy's here. Carrie's here. Carrie's always here, I'm sure, especially when Gretchen's here. And with that, while we have a break in the action, Gretchen, why don't you say hello and bring everybody up to date and thoughts on recovery?
Yeah. Hi. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Cynthia. Hi, Carrie. So, yeah, I mean, I love that that's the topic today, because I've always felt like if you sort of recognize the need for recovery, you're already taking those steps, whatever that means for you. And so, like we were talking before the show, for me lately, it's meant Newman, recovery for Newman, but also for, my dad is getting over some stuff, and he and my sister are working through a lot of stuff there. It's actually something that I'm working on as well, which is going to be a move at some point over the summer. So there's a lot going on, but recovery is such an important thing. And I think sometimes people have maybe a slight disconnect with what it is, but it's really, it's such a self-fulfilling act that you can do in any area. If there's something that's been challenging you and you are taking the bold step, even if it's just thinking, I want to do something about that, that's a bold first step. That's the beginning of your recovery on whatever that challenge is. Whether, let's say, it could be a food challenge. It could be, a sleep deprivation challenge. It could be something like that you need to recover from. A lot of times I think we peg the word recovery to a dependency on something, but recovery it's a very broad term, and it has wide application for our lives. It's a great word. I love that it's the subject today.
Well, it makes it so much more fascinating and interesting when you share your definition and insights. And that's what's so cool. Is people take a word that's typically something they just think a certain way of,
Yep.
and then they think of it in much different ways. And maybe they're a little bit more patient and forgiving when people say something long enough to understand the context of it.
Yeah.
And if you can take one word and start to open up definitions, maybe you can take your whole vocabulary, and that's what the hope is. So really quickly, I got a great group. It is every day, never ends. Ashif is here, has been here every day. Thank you. Carrie, 493, no coffee. Good morning, y'all. Kelly's the best. She's on Thursday. And don't want to miss her. We're going to have Baz with us, Baz Porter, this Thursday. Great guy, tremendous story. Dennis is here. I'm here, happy to hear, always rhyming. Good for you, Dennis. Good morning to all from my side today. I assume that's kind of in the India area. Let me see. Hope Newman is doing well. That was my first thought when I talked to Gretchen today. We're always all pulling for Newman. Wonderful to be here again today evening, my time, and learn from the conversations. A lot of Carrie here. I am trying to get through a lot of stuff right now with the house and trending water with finances. And that's what this group is here, is to give support, to give appreciation for everybody as being an individual and having a story and trying to help each other. So with that, what comes to mind from what Gretchen was saying is recovery can also be looked at as reinvention, right? It's coming from where you were to where you want to be, and it takes that recovery time to get there. I mean, easiest way is if you cut yourself and you put a Band-Aid on it, within a few days it'll recover and you won't even know it was there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people recovering from the past, things that aren't physical, things you can't really see, but you truly feel. And the best way to get recovered is with other people who are recovering with you or have recovered,
Or
right?
can support you in doing it, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's always better together. Whatever it is
Yeah.
you do, just to share, just to get anybody who will say, hey, I've been there. I know what you're going through. You'll get there. Or, hey, I'll
Yeah.
be here for you. And I think that's what
Yeah.
Gretchen's point is. It's not giving something specific. It's just giving the understanding they're not alone. There's someone they can call, someone they
Yeah.
can talk to. And it is one day at a time. And if you can take things or one meal at a time or one drink at a time, whatever it is you're recovering from, all you got to do is for the moment, stay there and not get ahead. Go ahead, Gretchen.
Yeah, and sometimes it's that in the moment. Sometimes you need to recover from, let's say, a trigger. Something set you off. You had an anger flash. You had a moment, right? Sometimes it's when you're so busy doing things. Have you ever done this where you've gone to the kitchen and you're like, why am I in here? Wait, why did I come in here? Because you're so busy, you don't remember. Or you're in the middle of doing something at your computer and you realize like there's a tab or a browser you need to go to, but you can't remember why. Because that's your brain saying stop, full stop. That's a recovery mechanism. That's a natural recovery mechanism to pull you out of being too fragmented mentally, to bring you right back into a moment of, when we say clarity, that's clarity. Nothing you don't remember, you can't think of anything else. There's a reason for that. That's a momentary recovery that we all have the opportunity to do. It's really important when we're engaging with other people who we may be challenged by. You can take those moments of recovery. And again, anger is usually one of the bigger ones, or frustration, where you find yourself in that moment. How do you recover from that? You know, in the moment, it can be very difficult. That's also when it's the most important. So when you have a couple of techniques, the 4-4-4 is one of my favorites. You know, you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, do it 3 times, less than a minute. You will manually lower your heart rate. You will lower your anxiety. You can't help but do that. And that's a really good way to kind of, reground yourself, to recover yourself in that moment in less than a minute. You can also, I mean, there are other ways you can do it. And I always have to laugh when I think of it, but there's a technique called cognitive behavioral therapy. And it's thought, in my opinion, it's thought switching is the word that I use for it. And so I have a thought that whenever I get like really frustrated and I'm like, I'm going to go off the ledge. Or if I'm like, let's say I'm stuck in traffic and I've got to be somewhere and I cannot get there and I'm really frustrated. And I go to this memory that I have of me riding horses when I was little with my friend Amanda. And every time we went to Amanda's house, I don't know why. It could be any time of the year, any time of the day. It smelled like bacon. And it just cracks me up when I think about it. And that immediately changes my mood and it changes my focus. It also changes my thinking from back here to up here. And that's where, problem solving and other things can happen. It relaxes me. That's a way to recover yourself in the moment, which is really important because we can get ourselves into trouble when we can't recover ourselves in the moment. We can say or do things that we might regret later. And at that point, it's sometimes too late.
Well, absolutely. And now you're dealing with another recovery on a recovery from what you just
Yeah.
responded to the recovery. So I think
Right.
what all lends itself to is awareness. Because first of all, you have to be aware that you need recovery,
Yes.
right? You have to accept that something isn't working the way you wanted it or enjoy it to be.
Yeah.
You make a decision when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you tend to do something about it. And that's to recover from it. Something has happened in order for you to have to recover or want to recover.
Yeah.
And I think awareness, like you say, usually the challenge that Gretchen, I think, is alluding to is when you're surprised by something,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it could be a good surprise,
Yeah.
right? It could be somebody just threw you a surprise birthday party. But at the moment, it's like you're all squirrely and don't
Yeah.
understand how this person is sitting there. I
Yeah.
remember, I'll tell you a quick story. I used to go home to Detroit every like Thanksgiving and be with the family and take my family with me.
Mm-hmm.
One time we decided not to tell anybody we were coming. And it was like, are you coming? We're not sure, but we don't want to put you out. So anyways, everybody shows up, ring the doorbell. My sister answers it, looks at us, and closes the door and walks away. She can't believe it. And we're sitting there on the porch, and she finally comes back at like 30 seconds later. And then my grandmother almost had a heart attack. And I swear, never happen again.
Yeah.
It does feel right. And the point is in that moment of surprise, of pure joy or pure misery,
Yeah.
that is the time to start saying, hey, boom, something's going on here. Let me give it just a little time. And a little time can go a long way.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think in recovery, you need to ask questions. A lot of it is new. A lot of it is like, I don't understand this. And anytime you ask a question, you do two things. You'll probably get an answer, and it'll give you more time about thinking about your answer, right, to the original question. So anyways, let me run through a lot of these people. Dennis, like I said, is here. Thanks for reminding us to uncover our recovery. In essence, everybody's going through some recovery. Someone's had some embarrassing situation or shameful thing or things they know they were guilty of and they should have never done. I mean, it's not like everybody's innocent, maybe there's some co-responsibility involved. But you know what I also found, the sooner you just accept responsibility and move on, it's so much better than the blame game, and people need to recover from that.
Yeah.
Lillian's here. I'm back. Good morning. Carrie, I asked the person, where can I find tools, bricks? And he said, construction. I said, when will it be finished? You got to get on the
jokes.
Good support for thought for sure. She's happy Monday. Let me see if I can find something a little meatier. I'm trying.
Well, I think Andrea had a good one.
Okay.
Andrea had a comment about meditation is the best way to get balanced. And she's absolutely correct about that. And one of the things I wanted to mention why that stood out to me is that when we talk about recovery and we talk about something that's happening in the moment, meditation is wonderful. I've been doing it since December 2014. And it absolutely is a phenomenal practice. The challenge that some people have with meditation is they think that it needs to be done at a certain time, in a certain place, in a certain way. And sometimes that can be very good. Like I have my way that I like to do it every day. But when you can have that, sort of grow that self-command muscle, that in the moment, when you may not be able to get to your special place, even if it's a mental special place, if there's a lot going on and you've got to isolate yourself and figure out, ask, like you said, Don, ask yourself those questions. Why am I upset right now? What does this mean for me? How do I want to respond to this? And give yourself that grace and that space to do that. It can be challenging in the moment, but what Andrea says about meditation is so important, is finding that balance, and being able to do that in the moment is even more critical. And I do agree that when you have that practice, and it is a practice, you do it every day. I call them PQ reps, and I learned that from the folks at Positive Intelligence, where I am basically practicing my ability in the moment to intercept what's bothering me and say, whoa, before we go down deep here, we're going to stop you. I'm going to look at you. Why are you bothering me? Why am I upset by this? And now I want to practice my self-command, right? I want to practice my self-command. I want to be able to, take control of the situation and not respond in a way that's going to be detrimental to myself or anyone else. And that's really important. It can be difficult to do, but that practice makes it all possible.
Yeah, and I think it's having the right principles, that go along with some things, I'm just not going to do. That's saying like, no matter how much money, I wouldn't do something like that.
Right.
And what's interesting, if you ever get into a situation where you really have to show what your principles are, what you're willing to get into, because maybe if things you recovered from, you say this is something that is short term, but long term could be something that could lead to a recovery situation.
Yeah.
versus a continuation situation. So a lot of recovery is based on direction. Where are
Yeah.
you? Where you're going? What's it going to take to get there? How important is it? It's really getting that, steam built up first, getting that commitment. And
Hmm.
the other thing is once you write it down, it starts to gain power. Once
Yeah.
you share it with somebody, it becomes more something where you're committed to it.
Yep.
That's why I say don't tell somebody you're going to do something unless you're really going to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you're going to put yourself in a position where you built an obligation or a responsibility. Plus, no matter what you do or whatever word you use, if trust isn't supporting it, the word has no meaning, right? If you're talking with someone who you can't trust, no matter what they say, no matter how flowery, how impressive, you just say, I know there's nothing here but a lot of hot air. Gretchen?
It's one of the things that is so important to have, and that is that earned trust with people. Because again, you can't really move to a situation of any import if you don't have that as your foundation. And so one of the things that everybody wants to get to, and certainly it's part of leadership development that I train people on, but is achieving the holy grail of leadership, which is mutual accountability. You're not going to do what you think I want because you think I want it. You're going to do it because you know I'm as invested in your success as you are. This is a partnership, and we can't have that without earned trust. You need to be able to trust your friends, your accountability partners, your leaders, your boss, everybody else, your friends, to know that they have your back. They are there for you to support you. Sometimes it's just to be an ear or whatever you need. But if you don't have that, you can't build anything else with each other. So what you just said is so important, because trust has to be the foundation. It really does. Everything else comes, all the good things come from that.
Yeah, I'm
And
so
you can't
glad
fake that.
we're in agreement with that, Gretchen, because when the only currency you're trading without monetization is your word, is your handshake.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I've had a lot of experiences and I've had so many big, I mean, very significant dollar relationships all on someone's word. I mean, there
Yep.
was some documentation, but I always knew, hey, this is a long-term relationship we're in. We got to look after each other. And if someone gets into a situation no one intended, someone needs to make it right,
Yeah.
right? And that's when you prove your uh, character, integrity, and trust. And that's why people coming up should understand is trust is so hard to achieve and so easy to lose.
I've said this before, your reputation, especially in terms of your career, your professional reputation is your currency. It is how you move forward in this world or you don't. And your reputation is basically the trust factor. Do people like you? Do they know you? Do they trust you? If they don't, you think about, like, years ago, like many years ago on LinkedIn, I wrote like a little thing about like your personal user rating. And I likened your reputation to be the user rating you get from other people. What would yours be? Would you be a 5-star? Would you be a 4, maybe a 3? Think about that, because it matters. Other people's experience with you, what they take away from their time. Time is precious. We don't get that back. What they take away from their time, the time they spend with you, is it beneficial for you? Would they do it again? Do they come back? If they don't, that's a time really to, let's go back to recovery. Go back and try to recover, the situation where they would have come back or they did come back. Do it, as in business they call it a gap analysis. Do one. What happened in between? If people aren't coming back to me, what happened between the time they used to and now? Have I changed? Did I do something differently? Did I not do something that was important to them? Was I not there for them? And again, did I breach a trust? You have to ask those things. That personal user rating is very important. Yes.
Well, I'm so much in agreement with what you're saying because it is the best way. Not only is it true, but in time, it's the easiest way because you don't need much of a memory, right? If you just tell people the honest truth,
Yeah.
and there's a time where you got to be things you don't really want to be. People put you in situations.
Yeah.
where they force something. And, anybody can dismiss an independent situation. But what I find is when you're on like LinkedIn, there is no independent situation. Everything spreads to everybody. And also everything duplicates what you accept. So once people start going way beyond the bounds, people are looking at you. I know in my company, when someone was a challenge and there had to be something done,
Yeah.
everybody was waiting for someone to do it. And when you didn't do it, they always knew maybe that, hey, this is acceptable.
Yeah.
So your least beneficial activity that you accept or that you project will continue to build your reputation or lessen it. And, at the end of the day, it's not the talking, it's the doing. It's not what
Yeah.
someone said to you. It's like when you actually work with that person, when you communicated with them, were they always respectful? Were they thoughtful?
Yeah.
Were they
Yeah.
caring? Once you can build that up, the trust will follow.
I will say this too, and if you see my eyes tracking this way, I'm reading some of the comments,
If
but
you find one, pick one
really,
out, and
yeah.
we'll hit
But I did want to say really quickly, one of the things that's important too is when people are coming back, and again, this has to be done in the most empathetic way possible. When somebody shines that light or holds that mirror up to you and says, "Hey, Gretchen, I really didn't like how you interrupted me in that meeting. I really didn't like how you that word you used. It really offended me." I have to, or anybody in that situation has to be able to receive that input without judgment and say, okay, what happened there? What did I contribute to something? That's a hard thing to do. You can recover yourself and you can begin to recover reputation that you might have damaged if you're able to do that. But the other thing too is when you have someone in your life, and hopefully you have a leader at work, or you have a leader in your life, or you have your personal board of directors and that kind of thing, or you have that one friend, or you have those people who tell you lovingly, but they tell you the truth. They'll, and they say it with love. There's no malice there. That's important because we all need that level of accountability. We need to know that there's somebody there who's going to help us. Our success is that important to them that they're going to risk maybe saying something like you said that may not be all hearts, flowers, and roses in the moment, but it's important to get that through. It's also important to do it in the right way, so that we all understand that part of it. But those two sides are very important. And so, like you were saying a while ago, it's critical that we all do this together, that we're there for each other, we're support for each other. We help everyone achieve the best they can be. And again, sometimes that can mean delivering some information that may not be, the most positive that people want to hear, but they need to hear it in the way that it's important they hear it. Again, the way you say anything determines whether it's heard or not.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There is a lot to intention. There's a lot to context. It's a lot to familiarity. Some people who are really close to you can say things to you and you don't get offended. And other
Yep.
people just met you would be like, and I think the key word that you brought up is judgment. And what I try to do is start at a point where I believe the other person's going to tell me something that once I know it will make everything right. So what I typically say is not really give my opinion of what they said. Really, in other words, I could say that was a really mean thing you said, and all of a sudden it's in the mean category, and that's what your mind is. If I just say, were you aware? First, I would take that apology to them. Were you aware of what you said? And if they said yes, okay, I'm a little confused. What did you mean by that? Or what did you expect me to take away from it? I'd love you to help me out. So in other words, you're just looking for insight and help.
Yes.
Now, if someone says, I meant to really hurt your feelings, then you can say, well, that's how I felt. I just had to check it out, and I'll take that and take account of it. That's as simple as it is because it's direct. Now, if someone says, oh my gosh, did I say that? It's like, yeah, but hey, if you say it was a mistake, I mean, everybody gets one. I didn't know it. I didn't mean it. When it gets to 2 and 3, then it's like, hey, this is not going well. And I don't like this because now I'm getting played in a way.
Mhm.
where,
And that
and
yeah. And that's a really important point because there are certain words people will use where they're not coming at you with like beneficial wishes for you. That's one. We can put that in the bucket of okay, we know what that's all about. But if somebody's coming to you genuinely and saying, I didn't appreciate that, or you made me feel like I didn't matter, or something like that, that's somebody who is reaching out to you actually for support. They want to make things right with you. Otherwise, they could have just let it fester inside and built up their own narrative about what they thought had happened, but they're coming to you. And so a lot of people don't see that as the open door that it is. That is an open door. Anytime somebody comes to you and says, I had a feeling about this, I wasn't sure about that. What did you mean about this? Instead, yeah, and again, that non-judgment, look at it as an open door. Ask yourself, what do I need to hear from what they're saying? What are they saying that I need to hear right now? There's a reason they approached me. One, they felt like they could come to me with that. That's a plus. When people don't feel like they can come to you with something, they don't. They go and tell everybody else what they thought about what you did. And then it becomes this whole big blown up thing. But when they come to you with something and they say, I didn't care for that. I didn't like that. Or you made me feel, they trust you enough because they feel like you're open to it. That is a positive thing. Now, what do I need to hear from that? And again, if you didn't intend to, that's cool. If you did, okay. But now we have to understand we have a relationship with this person. Enough so that they know they can come to me with something. So we have some sort of relationship together. Now we want to figure out how we can keep that, we can preserve that, keep that going. And again, everything is about mutually beneficial circumstances. What do we need to do to keep moving things forward in a positive direction? A lot of times, it's that old, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy kind of argument, where people are so entrenched in, I got to be right and I don't like that and she's wrong and I'm right and all this kind of thing, instead of saying, how can we move forward in this one together so we all win,
Mhm.
And compromise and negotiation go hand in hand. It's always like 80-20, 70-30, that kind of thing. You got to give to get, right? Everybody does. You do, they do. But at the end of the day, if everybody is happy with the outcome and you can continue to have a harmonious work relationship, a harmonious home relationship, whatever it is, then you're winners. Then you've won. Everything's good. And that is a recovery. That is recovering the core relationship and keeping it going, preserving it and keeping it going. That's recovery.
Well, it's also recovering yourself because
Yeah.
what you don't want to do is bring doubt home with you and keep it
Yeah.
there for a long time. Because if
You're right.
something's gnawing at you, it's like a clean desk at the end of the day. If I've got an issue and again, if you take the time to say, is this really an issue or is it me? Or, am I making more out of this than there is? And
Oh,
then you
yeah.
come back and you say no, then it's really, you're going to the person is like, help me out. And if you share
Yep.
your true situation after what happened yesterday, I went home and it wouldn't leave my mind.
Yeah.
Right. And I need some help here to give me some direction. And it's okay. Whatever it is, it is. The
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is adjust it. And here's the thing, how people treat you in public versus private, because a lot of what we're talking about is how people talk when you're around the table with other
Yeah.
people, right?
Yeah.
There's a golden rule in business I always followed is praise in public, criticize in private.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If someone's done a great job, make sure everybody knows about it and they can be proud and everybody else could know and be proud. When someone's really done something, the last thing you want to do, because that's such a cowardly way, well, Jim over there, you won't believe what he just did, and all of a sudden Jim's like, hey, I didn't even know I did it. Why don't you talk to me now? How do we undo this? And that's where trust is, hey, you said something, but when we're around people, you treated me like this, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and that's just not right in my mind. And it's okay. If you make and it is, whatever is good for someone is good for that person and it's okay for them, but it doesn't mean you're buying into it in the future. And
Yeah.
if you do have some control, you'll use it to redirect your time and attention to someone who will provide for you.
Yeah.
And I think recovery is deciding to quit something so that you can recover to something more necessary. So let's just go through the names. We got a
I
lot.
just saw Harvey Tuck's comment about my background. Reminds me of the Blockbusters.
Okay, let me get Harvey. Harvey's got a great sense of humor.
He's
Uh,
so funny.
yeah, and he's always got props. Okay, okay, Harvey. A lot of comments. Jeez. Okay, here's something from Harvey. Maybe it's the big one. Really resonate with what you have said. There is a way of saying something and a way of receiving something.
Yeah.
Sometimes in sales, you have to develop a very tough exterior. The challenge is to recover with a positive takeaway. Well, I think one of the keys is everything in life is a continuum, not an outcome, right? So the key is to continue to recover towards being better to yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
then being better to everybody around you, and you'll attract people who are attracted by that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And other people where there's a question, there should be a question to resolve it. Rita's here. Rita's just great. She's doing Wednesdays now. Great to have you. Harvey's doing Fridays. We don't know what others are going through, so it's best to ask a few more questions. Well, even if you have a judgment, you might as well give somebody an opportunity, right? Even if you believe 100% this person is totally wrong, it's like, hey, before I leave, is there anything I don't know about or you want to share or whatever? And as long as you know whatever it is, it's okay. It's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts, Gretchen?
Judgment is a tricky thing because we all do it, and we tend to rush to do it. And again, that's a survival function of our brain. There's just no getting around that. It's how to, and again, this goes back to self-command, realizing when you're in judgment mode and stopping yourself and saying, wait a minute, what are the factors I don't know here? And again, that goes way back to the whole perception versus reality debate, that we all are going to have a different perception of something that happened, and it could, again, I'll use the example of after the house blew up. There was the night that I had a panic attack, and I look over and my husband's sleeping like a baby. I'm like, how are you sleeping like a baby? And I'm like, I feel like I'm having a heart attack and I'm going to die. We were both in the house when it happened. Like, how is this possible? Because people aren't going to react to the same thing the same way. We all have a different perception of it, which means we all also have a different version of that reality from it. And so it's like and this is the example I used on Nathan Hill's Tilted Bench, but I've used this one before because it's universal. How do you know if you're in judgment, right? If you're in that judgment mode, if you've ever in your life sent a text to somebody or an email and they took a little bit of time to get back to you, or maybe they never got back to you, did you ever have the thought of, are you mad at me? Did I say something in that text or email? If you ever had it like wake you up at night, you sent your boss or you sent your best friend an email and they never got back to you, and you woke up and you're like, crap, what did I put in that email? What did I say? What did I say? Was it wrong? That's your judge saying, hey, you did something wrong. You didn't. That's a narrative that you're creating to fill in the gaps of the information you don't have. They didn't get back to you. We do that all the time where somebody, gives us the side eye. Maybe they're looking at something over here, but it looked to us like it was, a view askance of us or something. Or they were looking at something in the distance and they didn't see us. I was in Key West years ago, and I'm walking down Duval Street, and there's a gentleman that I worked with walking right toward me. And I said, hey to him, and he walked right past me. And I was really upset about that. I was like, wow, you know me at work, but you don't know me in public. Okay, I see how we are now. Okay. And then I got back to the office and I saw him and I was like, oh yeah, you were in Key West this weekend. He was like, yeah, were you there too? I said, yeah, I said hello to you on Duval Street. You walked right by me. And he goes, you did? I didn't see you. I was like, how could you not see me? I was right in front of you. But he was describing what was going on at the end of the street, which we had just left, my husband and I. There was a big carnival, a lot of performers and things. And he was looking at that. He didn't see me legitimately, but for 2 days I stewed over that non-return of my hello. And I created this whole scenario that he didn't like me. He was uppity. He was ignoring me in public and blah, blah. And if he ever needed anything at work, I wasn't going to do it for him. And then I had to check myself, right? We all do it. Everybody does it. But it's a matter of in that moment saying, okay, what do I need to know from here? What do I not know from here? And understanding that the judge is a natural thing we all do. But how much self-command do we have over to go, you know what? Yeah. I don't know what I don't know. Let's find out. Let's ask the question. And that's hard to do.
Yeah, and here's a couple other layers of it. A lot of it has to do with how long have you known somebody, and that's when something really surprising. I mean, if you just met somebody and someone does something weird, you say, I don't even know this person.
Right?
So I don't even know what the big deal is. But if you
Yeah.
know somebody, a best friend or a family member, and all of a sudden they show up like night and day,
Yeah.
that's where, hey, what's going on? And the other thing I learned that can give you a safety net is have somebody that you're with and trust almost and knows you so well, or
Mm-hmm.
has even been in the situation with you when it happened.
Yeah.
And you can say, hey, am I crazy here? Or am I overreacting? And they might say, hey, I saw the same thing, you're 100%. Or,
Yeah.
hey, I think you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself. I think they were trying to be funny. They're not
Yeah.
funny and it didn't come across that way, but I'm sure they didn't mean to hurt you or do this. And then at least when you talk to the person, you can even start out, it appeared you didn't mean to do this and whatever.
Yeah.
But hey, even if you didn't mean it, even if you didn't know it, let's hope that never repeats,
Well,
right?
and I will say this too, not to interrupt, but if you see me looking off, I'm not being rude because I'm listening. I'm just making sure Newman isn't getting himself in trouble.
No, and I think the key is about Dr. Constance is here. Actually, Dr. Constance will be here tomorrow.
I
And
love her profile picture. I love it. I love it.
there are so many unbelievably great people on LinkedIn I've met, and
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who really have fire in their belly, are looking to do great things, are looking to bring a lot of people with them. I tell everybody this is the beginning of the beginning. We
Yeah.
are in front of so much abundance and so much opportunity, you know. The key is really jumping in, but doing, I think, like me and Gretchen are saying, with trust, with the right questions. You want to be the person that someone says, okay, when things happen, this is how they respond. And I agree
Yes.
with Gretchen. Like my wife is the best when things are the worst, you know?
Aw.
It really, you can all, it just shows. It's always like, hey, it's always optimism. It's always, hey,
Yeah.
this is this. And remember, we still have our health. We still got our freedom. We still got our
Have
family.
Have you ever had your wife guest with you?
No, no, not
You
yet.
should. You should do. Sorry, Newman has decided he needs to be a lap dog right now. You should do it because she sounds amazing. And every time you mention her, I love the way you talk about your wife. And I think that would be such a great show if you invited her to guest with you. Yeah.
Well, I think so too. I'll have to ask her. She actually does
Yeah.
her own Zoom yoga session for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's familiar with the camera. So thank you for that. Andrea has a question. When we judge someone, do we judge what we do not like about ourselves, Gretchen? That's a good question. And you know what? We're all recovering for different things at different times. So it's not like, hey, they got it, I don't, or they need my help, I don't need theirs.
Yeah.
Because if you can question other people, then you can be questioned by other people. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm so careful, and everybody should be careful of the words they use, how
Yes.
they use them, when they use them. To Gretchen's point, a soft, calm tone goes a long way versus an accusation with a finger pointed at them with all this stuff, because people freak out and they get defensive,
Yeah.
and they're thinking, oh, what does this person need right now to get me out of this situation? And then they just dig their hole deeper. Paul's
Yeah.
here. Paul says, recover while you can before it's too late. I think everything is a day to day, one step at a time. Don't get ahead of yourself. Don't feel so sorry for yourself. And then naturally, don't feel too proud of yourself. Always stay humble, always stay modest. You meet the same people on the way down as you see on the way up. Tanya's here. Tanya has a great show.
She
I
does.
checked out Tanya. I mean, you got some of the best right in front of you who are sharing
Yeah.
with you and for you. Pick up that
Yeah.
mirror and see your reflection. Are you able to stomach what you see? So true. So
Yeah.
many people are focused on everybody else and they forget about themselves either way. And, take care of yourself first. Do you ever have people arguing, little kids? And it's like, hey, take care of yourself first before you start bothering Bobby next to you or Sally, or just stay in your lane, buddy. Tanya says, words are so important, yet sometimes a lack of words speak volumes. And, here's the thing, too. When you approach somebody, you don't got to stay there for 20 minutes and reinforcing it.
Yeah.
Right? Just give them what they need to know so you feel better about what you just shared with them. And you got it off your chest and you gave them a chance and you got an opportunity to get a different answer. And if you got confirmation, it's like, hey, it would have been easier just to tell me that than show me that.
The other thing,
it hit the road, I would have done it. Now I got to leave the road. Go ahead, Gretchen.
The other thing too with that is that, like I was saying, how you say anything determines if it's heard or not. But the other thing with that is that we all we go about things in our own way. We're all just doing the best we can. And so where you or I might, let's say I'm at a place where I can hear some information and I can digest it and I'm doing all that, but somebody else isn't quite there yet. That has to be okay too. That has to be okay. If you're having conversation with somebody and you're trying to make your point, and let's say that they're not being obstinate or that they don't know that they are, if they're not ready to hear it, that discussion needs to be tabled until they are. And two things happen, right? One is the people get very hyper emotional. You're not listening to me, da da da. Or they get angry. Either way, that has to be the close of that dialogue because you're not having conversation at that point. And no one's going to hear the other person because we're so focused and blind. We've got our blinders on about our point, our hurt, right? What happened to us. And so we have to be able to let ourselves, like I call it diffusing your inner bomb. Let that time pass. Be okay with that time passing. Everything happens when it needs to. And if you try to shoehorn your I'm sorry or your what can we learn about this into a time frame that's not right for somebody else, then it's not going to go anywhere. And so it's okay to say, let's come back to this when we're both in a little clear headed space. I know we got amped up, we got upset about it. I'm sorry that happened. Can we maybe try it again in a little while? Just take a little breather. Give people and yourself that space, that grace to do that, because we don't all arrive at things at the same time. We don't all process things at the same time. And so that also is really important because, again, at the end of the day, mutually beneficial outcomes are what really moves everything along. And it helps us too. It helps us grow and do those things because, again, it gives us more time to think about how we might want to articulate something, but also being sure that we are helping the other person, come through that with as much self-respect and as much recovery as they can and we can together. That is really challenging, but it's so important and it's so rewarding to be able to do that. Yeah.
Well, I just can't get enough of what you have to say today, Gretchen, because it's so valuable. It truly is. And, I think the essence of a lot of things relates to slowing things down. And there's another opportunity. Say, hey, we talk quite a bit now. Maybe it's time we digest what we talked and get back tomorrow because you give them the same benefit of, hey, I just surprised them with my feelings. Why would I expect a response right now? And if you show, hey, no rush when you have time to think it over, because you just want the best.
Yeah.
And it could be a correction of either something that someone didn't know or they were kind of cute one day. Or push the limits to see if there was a limit. And they found out that there are boundaries. People can have fun and they can enjoy each other. But if it's professional and it's business, and then some people say, I really didn't know. I'm used to doing this and no one seems to have an issue, which is almost saying you're getting too particular.
Right.
You're the only one that has this issue with me. But it's okay because people respect people who stand up for their principles. If you do something because this is how I believe and how my foundation doesn't have to be yours, but it's like anybody's beliefs, people should respect their ability to have their beliefs as long as they don't impact others in a negative way. And that's how people recover is they say, I'm not as advanced yet. That's why I'm here and you're there. And maybe we can bridge and level up is the key word these days. Gretchen?
There are also like, cultural differences and other things that are acceptable and not acceptable depending on, where how you grew up and how your family did things and all that. And again, it goes to those views, the opinions that we have, the beliefs that we have. But understanding that how I perceive something, the reality that I think that the situation is may not be what the other person got from it. And if we have a disagreement, then clearly that is what's happened. But you're right. Sometimes we're in such a rush to say you were wrong and I'm right and you upset me and you need to make it right. And on the other side of that, I might be in such a rush to go, I'm so sorry, I'm going to fall over myself and I'm not sure yet what I'm apologizing for. It's perfectly fine to slow it down and say, you know what, I really want to think about this. I want to think about where we ended up here, how we got here. I want to think about my part in that. And I
Mm-hmm.
want to think about how I can come back and we can have a really meaningful conversation about this so it doesn't happen again. And we're good. You know, that can be difficult. I mean, some of the best conversations I've had have started with me going, "Whoa, what? I didn't do that." Not me. I was good. I can't believe you got upset about that. But I needed to hear it. They were things that I need, and they were hard to hear. There was one that, years ago, somebody just came up to me and they were like, I don't like you. And I was like, but I'm so likable. How could you not like me? And they're like, no, because you always talk over me. You never let me get a word in edgewise and da da da. And I am a horrible interrupter. I always have been. Maybe it's because I'm a middle child. I don't know. But a lot of it is I really want to help people so much that if I have information here, it's going to go out there before they're done saying anything. It has taken me a long time and I'm still learning. We all learn every day that while somebody's still talking, they're still formulating what they're saying. They haven't finished. So I'll have my time. I don't need to interrupt. And I still do it though. I still catch myself all the time. But that was one of the most important things that anybody ever said to me because I never saw it. And I was like, no, I don't. I was very defensive about it at the time. But then I started watching myself and I was like, holy moly, I do that. I absolutely do that. And every time I interrupt somebody else, they feel devalued, they feel unheard.
Mm-hmm.
And that degrades the relationship that we have. I don't want that. I have to own my part in that. I have to be able to recover myself to be able to recover our relationship from the damage that I've done. And that was from something that's conversational interruptions happen all the time. And I know I am a serial interrupter. It is something I always work on. And I fail every day as much as I succeed at it. It's a practice, like any other thing that we want to improve. It's practice. And again, going back to, yes, I love the word grace because it's so important that we give ourselves grace, but also that we do that for other people. We're all just people doing the best we can. And if we help each other do better, with each other, not what we think is better, but with each other and for each other, that just moves everything forward in the best way and in like a permanent way. You don't have to like revisit those old hurts a lot of the time. They're good, you know?
Well, to your point, since we're talking along the same lines, when I am approached with that from people, and it happens, I didn't like this, or I
Yeah.
was expecting this, or whatever, and 90% of the time they got a good point. They may not have the whole picture, but I
Yeah.
know when they're bringing it to me, I saw, I know your intention is good. I know
Mhm.
you want it to be better for you and for me and for us. So if you go in and say there's no question of your intention, the
Right.
issue the sooner you take responsibility, the faster things move.
Yes.
Yeah, right? If they're right, you
Yeah.
should say, "Thank you for bringing it to my attention. You're absolutely right. I'm going to make a point, try not to do it." I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
And what I say to people is, give me the forgiveness I'm willing to give you.
Yeah.
So, if you can make a mistake and I just understand it's a mistake, and there's a difference between a mistake and something that's totally out of line and unfamiliar to everybody involved. And that's when you say, whoa, whoa, wait a second here. What's going on? And
Mhm.
the beauty of the word grace is who shows it first and who does it the most.
Yes. 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 it's
But one thing to your interruption point that I'd love to make, because I'm in that same boat, and it's like a discipline, because a lot of times what happens is someone makes a great point and you want to respond to it, but then they make another point and another point, and by the time the first point is what you
yeah,
want, you're on the third point, and then by the time that happens, you forgot about your point, and
it's
that's
so
why
true.
you want to bust in and say, "Hey, let me cover this, and I'll let you go." But then
Yeah.
once you cover it, you took it in another, added some flavor or direction to it, and then all of a sudden the person's like, "So, you know what?" And I'm trying to encourage people on the show. People know so much, people do so much, and share so much
Hmm.
that they do what they need to do, and then and here's why, and then here's why, and then here's why, and they drill down so low that instead of doing a lot for a few, it's easier to do a little for a lot and have everything kind of covered. It's like
Hmm.
putting coats of paint on one wall and one coat on the next wall and changing it around. So, what's fascinating about this is so much opportunity in how we accept things, how we
Yeah.
question things, how we forgive things. Because at the end of the day, the hope you can have is, I'm so sorry. I'll make sure it never happens again. And let me do something whatever. Let me demonstrate something out, whatever it is. I'll make you a poem. What's your thoughts, Gretchen?
Two things on that. So, one thing that I always like to do is when somebody calls me on something, I like to invite them to partner with me to make it right, to make it better. So, I can try to say, I'll do everything I can, but I'd like you also to help me. If you see me do that again, hold my feet to the fire. Give me lovingly, let me know I'm doing that again. I came up with some ways, like when I'm serial interrupting people, and I've actually trained people on this before. When you're dealing with a serial interrupter, there are some great ways to do it, and just say, hold on, hold on. I want to make my point. I think you're really going to want to hear what I have to say. And then when you're done making your point, say, thank you so much for letting me say that. What do you think about that? Invite them back into the conversation. So that way, when someone interrupts you, like me, right? You go, oh, hold on, Gretchen, hang on. I want to make my point because I think you're really going to like what I have to say. And then you make your point. And then when you're done, invite me back in who interrupted you. Now I'm not upset that you called me on my thing. So what do you think about that? And you asked my opinion. That is the greatest way to keep a conversation going with somebody who is a serious, they may not realize they're doing it. It's just a de facto habit. Like but you call them on it in a great, you can do this publicly in the middle of a meeting and nobody loses face. It's so respectful of the other person. And you invite them back in to the conversation. And I've again, because I've thought about that, like, okay, I do that. What does that do to other people when I do that? How can I help them and really show them I'm not just going to say I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to think of some ways to not do it. I'm going to put action around this and create a little plan for myself, a little system for myself. And I want you to try this with me. The next time I interrupt you, try that. And I've had people do it and it works like a charm. And then I'll sit back and I'll watch them in meetings or on a Zoom with somebody and they'll do it and it works beautifully. Nobody is, they're not upset. You're not going to quit interrupting me. No, it's hang on, hang on. I want to make my point. Let me just finish. Meaning I see what you're doing. Let me just finish. I'm in the middle of something. And then I want to hear what you have to say about it. So now I'm letting you know I'm still going to finish, but I'm going to come back to you. I'm not going to forget you because I know you have something to say. And then when I'm done, I'm like, okay, now Gretchen, what did you think about that? And now I want your opinion because you matter to me. And I know I matter to you because you let me be heard. And that is that mutual respect, that mutually beneficial outcome that we all look for. But again, that required me to do some really serious thought, thinking about when I do that, what does that do to the other person? How can I create a plan or a system or some way that would make that easier and better for everybody? And that's yeah.
Well, I think one way I just thought about it, and that's with the hand emoji, right? That can go up on a Zoom, right? Because right when the hand goes up, that could signal somebody, hey, I've got something to say, but I'm not going to interrupt in front of everybody. Because, the worst things, you ever see couples go to dinner and one starts arguing with another in front of the whole dining room,
Yeah.
and it's not even what they say. It's that you're here for dinner, right?
Yeah.
And you're now being embarrassed
Yeah.
in front of everybody,
Oh yeah.
and that's the challenge, when you feel you're forced to interrupt, but then you look like the bad guy because you cut somebody off. And here's the thing, you may not know that what they're saying is more important than what you have to say to what they're saying. And
Yeah.
the way I look at this show is it was just me and that was it. And it wasn't very much. And then
Mm-hmm.
it was me and a co host and no audience. And that wasn't very much, but it was a lot better. And the audience got bigger. And then at a certain point, all I care about is what does the audience get value from, right? This is like having a place to come every day to talk, to listen, to learn.
Yeah.
And now it doesn't matter what I think, it's a matter of what they get. And if someone's feeding their soul, if someone's addressing their needs, and that's where recovery comes in, is little steps that make you feel proud of today. Is,
Yeah.
people get ahead like, I'm going to lose 80 pounds in 2 weeks versus, hey, I'm just going to substitute an ice cream for an apple at night, and start there. And then I'm going to look at something else and keep building, because the fun is the journey. If it's such a struggle to get to the finish line, you may not get there. And then when you get there, you're worn out, tired, and say, I'm not going to do this race again. But if you're having a ball, you're smelling the flowers, you're not worried about time, you're not worried about who you're competing with. And also life opens up to you because you can get your life back. And that's where recovery is, not recovering from a situation. I
Yeah.
drink too much, I eat too much, I smoke too much, versus, hey, I remember when I was 10 years old, I was the happiest kid in the world. I was so innocent. Every day I couldn't wait to get out of bed and play with my friends or be with my family or
Yeah.
whatever I did. And I proved I used to do that. That was the same me that's sitting here today. How do I return to innocence? How do I
Yeah.
return to joy? And it's like, well, then you got to unreturn things that you've accepted to make room for it. And that's the lovely thing about what we talked about today, is everybody should have questions and everybody should get answers.
Yeah.
But only they can bring it up. And here's the thing is, if you allow something to go by, you're going to see it again and again and again. When you forgive people who don't even know they committed a crime,
Right.
and do you want that? I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at everything you do as a legacy, that everything is going to live on through someone else. What we're doing today could be seen for 100 years by
Yeah.
people we'll never meet or know. And one of these words, one of these concepts completes somebody. Most people got 97% of the puzzle. It's
Yep.
that 3% that makes the motor move, you
Yeah.
know? And if we can find that in little pieces, and you know what's happening, and it's happening without a lot of people knowing it, people are actually sending me things. People respond to me differently now. I don't understand why. And I'm saying, well, if you grow a little bit and you get more aware of, hey, this is a strategy, I'm going to replace an old one that isn't working.
Yeah.
Or I'm the person Gretchen talks about who goes off their rocker as soon as something shows up.
Yep.
And maybe it's time to back it down a little bit. So really, I think in essence, everything we're talking about is adjusting, getting more balanced, getting more comfortable. And the thing is, when you go into action, you should go in with confidence. You should go in with comfort. You just got hurt. You're
Mm-hmm.
not the one who has to feel bad about saying that. I mean, when you buy something at a department store and it doesn't fit, you never think, oh boy, am I intruding on these people? Am I lying? Should I have just thrown it
Yeah.
away, given away and not asked for my money back when it didn't fit? You never think of that with things. But with people, you say, and maybe because of what they did, they're backing you off already. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
go the mouth of a lion here.
Yeah.
anyways, I know we're at the top of the hour. I can't thank everybody enough. We honestly tried to get through most of these comments. I'm going to always come back and respond to them later. I think everybody deserves attention. And I want to thank Gretchen. So, final thoughts on our word recovery. We didn't rehearse, that's for sure.
No, I love it. Like I say, anytime you're in the space where you're thinking about how to improve on anything, whether it's yourself, somebody else's situation, that's a state of recovery. And just thinking about it puts you on that path, and it's a great thing. And celebrate the little wins along the way, because they matter. They keep you going.
Well, and there's nobody better at sharing her insights that are so valuable as Gretchen. I'm so proud and honored to have her here.
Thank
And
you.
with that said, Ambambola loves the way I talk about my wife. Maybe that's why we've been married 45 years.
You should
Uh,
bring her on the show. Yeah.
yeah, she's a little, well, she'd love to come on. Let's just say that. She'd be great. She is definitely my better half. I tell everybody when I grow up, I want to be just like her. So,
Aw.
yeah, she's the best. Erharon is here. Hello. Okay. So I think we covered it. Top of the hour. Thank you so much, Gretchen. Thank everybody for being here. Come back in 23 hours. We've got Dr. Constance. She's just, a blast from the minute she gets on and has so much valuable insight and is so encouraging just in the way she projects. So thank you. Take care.